you know the man who put Americans on the moon was a Nazi war criminal who built rockets with slave labor? Wernher von Braun was America's space hero in the 1960s, the brilliant scientist behind the Saturn V rocket. But before NASA, he wore a different uniform. During World War II, he was an SS officer designing V-2 rockets for Hitler's Germany. After the war ended, Operation Paperclip secretly smuggled him and other Nazi scientists into America. The government erased his past and gave him a new identity. What they hid was horrifying. Von Braun directly oversaw the Mittelbau Dora concentration camp, where 20,000 prisoners died building his weapons. Workers were beaten, starved, and worked to death in underground tunnels. More people died making his rockets than were killed by them. He watched it happen and did nothing. America's greatest achievement in space was built by a man with blood on his hands. The moon landing came at a price most people never knew. Did you know the deadliest plane crash in history happened when two jets collided on a runway in broad daylight? March 27, 1977, two Boeing 747s packed with passengers were diverted to Tenerife after a bomb threat closed their original airport. What should have been a simple fuel stop became a nightmare of miscommunication. Dense fog rolled across the runway, cutting visibility to almost zero. The Dutch KLM flight began its takeoff roll while the American Pan Am jet was still on the same runway. The critical moment came when the KLM pilot radioed, "We are at takeoff," but air traffic control heard, "We are taking off." Nobody realized the fatal misunderstanding until it was too late. At 170 miles per hour, the KLM jet slammed into the Pan Am aircraft. The explosion created a fireball visible for miles. Passengers trapped inside burning wreckage had no escape. 583 people died in seconds, all because of a simple communication error in the fog. Aviation's darkest day was caused by words that nobody understood. Did you know the Soviet Union built a frozen hell that killed over 200,000 people? In 1943, deep in the Arctic Circle, Vorkuta Gulag opened its gates. The propaganda called it rehabilitation through labor, but prisoners knew better. They worked 12-hour shifts mining coal in minus 40-degree temperatures, wearing nothing but rags. Food was a thin soup with sawdust. When that ran out, they ate leather boots and belts. Men froze to death in their bunks every single night. Mining accidents crushed dozens weekly, but the work never stopped. By 1953, desperation reached a breaking point. Prisoners rose up in rebellion, but Soviet guards showed no mercy. They executed the leaders and left bodies in the snow as warnings. For 20 years, this Arctic nightmare consumed lives like fuel. When it finally closed, the permafrost had swallowed evidence of unimaginable suffering. Vorkuta proved that sometimes the real monsters wear uniforms. Did you know a former Russian spy was slowly murdered with radioactive tea in the heart of London? Alexander Litvinenko had built a quiet life in Britain, working with intelligence services to expose Russian corruption. But on November 1st, 2006, he walked into the Millennium Hotel for what seemed like a routine meeting. Two Russian men waited for him with a simple pot of tea. He drank it without suspicion. Within hours, he felt violently ill. What he didn't know was that tea contained polonium-210, one of the most toxic substances on Earth. For 23 days, his body slowly burned from the inside out. His hair fell out in clumps. His organs began shutting down one by one. Doctors watched helplessly as radiation destroyed every cell in his body. On his deathbed, barely recognizable, he accused Putin directly of ordering his murder. His assassination sent a chilling message to the world. No enemy of the Russian state was safe anywhere. Even in London's most public places, death could be served in a teacup. Did you know an Eagle Scout and decorated Marine once became one of America's deadliest mass murderers? Charles Whitman seemed like the perfect citizen, honor student, loving husband, respected by everyone who knew him. But on August 1st, 1966, something snapped. That morning, he killed his wife while she slept, then drove to his mother's apartment and stabbed her to death. He wrote a note saying he didn't know why. Next, he loaded a footlocker with rifles, handguns, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, then headed to the University of Texas campus. He hauled his arsenal up 28 floors to the observation deck, barricaded the doors, and began shooting. For 96 minutes, he picked off innocent people like targets in a shooting gallery. 17 died, 31 wounded. Police finally stormed the tower and killed him. The autopsy revealed a brain tumor pressing against his amygdala, the area controlling aggression. Was it the tumor that made him kill, or was evil always inside him? Did you know 50 men once chose certain death to save millions of lives? March 11th, 2011, a massive tsunami slams into Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant. Backup power dies. 3 reactors start melting down. Protocol demands immediate evacuation. Everyone must flee the lethal radiation spreading through the facility, but 50 workers refuse to leave. They know the truth. Without them, these reactors will explode like Chernobyl. Tokyo will become a ghost city. 40 million people will die, so they stay, working in total darkness with flashlights, manually opening valves, spewing radioactive steam, pumping seawater into white-hot reactor cores as a desperate last resort. Radiation counters scream warnings, levels that guarantee death within months. They call their families, say goodbye, then return to work. For days, they absorb radiation doses that slowly cook them from inside. Their sacrifice prevents complete meltdown. The Fukushima 50 saved Japan, but condemned themselves to die slow, agonizing deaths from radiation poisoning. Did you know that radio waves once became the deadliest weapon in human history? In 1994, Rwanda had a popular radio station called RTLM. Families gathered around their radios every day to hear music, news, and comedy shows. The hosts were charming. The content was entertaining. Nobody saw what was coming. But slowly, the station began calling Tutsi people cockroaches. At first, it seemed like harmless jokes. Then the language got darker, more violent, more hateful. On April 6th, everything changed. President Habyarimana's plane was shot down. Within hours, RTLM transformed into something terrifying. The cheerful radio host began reading out names and addresses. They told listeners exactly where Tutsi families were hiding: churches, schools, homes. The hosts spoke like sports commentators, directing machete-wielding mobs from location to location. Go to the school on Main Street. They're hiding in the basement. In 100 days, 800,000 people were murdered. Neighbors killed neighbors. Children watched their parents die. Rivers ran red with blood. Radio waves had orchestrated the fastest genocide in human history. Words became weapons deadlier than bullets. Did you know a doomsday cult once turned Tokyo's subway into a chemical weapon testing ground? March 20th, 1995 started like any other morning for thousands of commuters boarding the subway. But hidden among them were 5 members of Aum Shinrikyo, a cult obsessed with triggering the apocalypse. They had spent months brewing sarin gas in secret laboratories, perfecting their recipe for mass murder. Each cultist carried plastic bags filled with liquid death, along with sharpened umbrellas. At exactly the same time across 5 different subway lines, they punctured the bags and fled. Passengers first noticed a strange smell, like cleaning fluid. Nothing to worry about. Then people started collapsing, convulsing, foaming at the mouth. Sarin attacks the nervous system, shutting down muscles needed to breathe. Victims suffocated while fully conscious, unable to move or scream. Emergency workers rushed into contaminated tunnels without protection, not knowing what they faced. 14 people died. Thousands were poisoned. A handful of fanatics had brought one of the world's largest cities to its knees, all during rush hour on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Did you know 9 expert hikers died in the most terrifying way possible in the frozen Russian wilderness? February 26, 1959, search teams found something impossible in the Ural Mountains. 9 experienced mountaineers, led by Igor Dyatlov, were dead under circumstances that made no sense. Their tent was sliced open from the inside. All 9 had fled barefoot into negative 30-degree temperatures, abandoning all their survival gear. But why? The investigation revealed horrors. Some bodies had massive internal injuries with no external wounds, like they'd been crushed by an invisible force. Others were missing eyes and tongues. Radiation was detected on their clothing. The evidence painted a terrifying final scene. Something inside their tent made these seasoned hikers panic so badly they cut their way out and ran into certain death in the frozen night. They died of hypothermia and unexplained crushing injuries. 64 years later, Russia's most disturbing mystery remains unsolved. Was it military weapons testing, sound waves that drove them insane? We may never know what made 9 experts choose death over staying in their tent. Did you know the man who saved billions from starvation also created the world's first weapon of mass destruction? Fritz Haber was a brilliant German chemist who invented synthetic fertilizer. His discovery feeds half the world's population today. But during World War I, he made a horrifying choice. Haber weaponized chlorine gas for the German army. He personally watched as green clouds of death rolled across the battlefield at Ypres in 1915. Soldiers clawed at their throats, drowning in their own blood and fluids. His wife Clara was also a chemist. She begged him to stop these war crimes. The horror of what her husband had become drove her to take his service pistol and shoot herself in their garden. But Haber didn't stop. He orchestrated more gas attacks, perfecting ways to kill thousands at once. The chemicals he developed would later become Zyklon B, the gas used in Holocaust death camps. Today, his fertilizer process feeds billions of people, but his legacy of chemical warfare haunts us still. One man's genius became humanity's nightmare. Did you know that for over 20 years, the world's most wanted terrorist lived openly in Sudan, protected by the government, while international agents hunted him across 3 continents? His name was Ilich Ramirez Sanchez, but the world knew him as Carlos the Jackal. Born in Venezuela, Carlos became a master of terror. He bombed cafes in Paris. He kidnapped oil ministers. He assassinated anyone who stood in his way. His calling card was chaos, and he left it across Europe like a signature written in blood. What made Carlos truly terrifying wasn't just his violence, it was his intelligence. While other terrorists hid in caves, Carlos lived in plain sight. He walked the streets of Khartoum like a free man. The Sudanese government gave him a house, protection, even a salary. Meanwhile, French intelligence, the CIA, and Interpol spent millions trying to find him. They followed ghost trails across continents. They interrogated hundreds of suspects. They came close, but never close enough. For 2 decades, Carlos proved that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one hiding in plain sight. Did you know that for over 20 years, the FBI's most trusted spy hunter was actually Russia's greatest asset inside American intelligence? Robert Hanssen seemed like the perfect agent, devout Catholic, loving father of 6. The man other agents turned to when they suspected a mole in their ranks. But behind this flawless mask lived America's most devastating traitor. While his colleagues trusted him completely, Hanssen was secretly photographing classified documents in his basement. He sold the identities of American spies working in Russia. He revealed which Russian officials were helping the United States. He even told Moscow about a secret tunnel the FBI had dug under the Russian embassy. The cost was measured in human lives. At least 3 CIA assets were executed because of information Hanssen provided. Dozens more had their covers blown, their families destroyed. For 2 decades, he attended church every Sunday, helped his children with homework, and maintained his reputation as a devoted family man, all while systematically dismantling American intelligence operations from the inside. The perfect double life of a perfect monster. Did you know the CIA once turned hospitals into torture chambers, using patients as unwilling test subjects for 20 years? From 1953 to 1973, the CIA ran a secret program called MK Ultra. They wanted to create the perfect mind control weapon. Doctors at psychiatric hospitals became CIA puppets. Patients who came seeking help for depression and anxiety became lab rats instead. The victims were given massive doses of LSD without their knowledge. They were locked in sensory deprivation chambers for weeks. Some were forced to listen to the same recorded message for days on end until their minds cracked. One technique called psychic driving involved putting patients into drug-induced comas, then bombarding them with repeated audio messages to completely erase their personalities. The goal was simple but horrifying: break a human mind completely, then rebuild it from scratch. Many patients lost their memories forever. Some forgot how to speak or walk. Others developed severe mental illnesses that lasted the rest of their lives. When families tried to sue, the CIA had already destroyed most evidence. The victims never got justice for this government-sanctioned torture.